Hello everyone, this is going to be another thermo video, and in this video we are going to be covering steady flow open system devices. This video is going to go over the types of devices and their different properties in order to help you analyze these devices separately. So to start, let us identify all of the different devices we may encounter. So I'll just list them off here. So we have nozzles and diffusers. We have turbines and compressors. Throttling valves. Mixing chambers. And also heat exchangers. All right, so we're going to go over the properties of such devices. So let us begin with nozzles and diffusers. So a nozzle increases, so it's a device that increases the velocity of a fluid at the expense of pressure. On the other hand, a diffuser is a device that increases the pressure of a fluid by slowing the velocity down. So it increases the pressure while slowing the fluid down. All right. And some of the properties of nozzles and diffusers is that they do not involve work. So we can say that the work is zero. And any change in potential energy is also negligible. So the change in potential energy is also zero. And since they experience large changes in velocity, we know that these changes are going to be significant in the energy balance. All right, so let's move on to the next pair of devices, turbines and compressors. So a turbine is what drives the electric generator in steam, gas, or hydroelectric power plants. So let's say turbine. Okay, and then a compressor. So compressors, pumps, or fans, they all are used to increase the pressure of a fluid. So you can also say pumps and fans as well. Okay, so an important thing to note is that turbines produce the power output. So for turbines, work out equals a number. And then compressors are the opposite. So compressors require work in to function. So actually, let me just get rid of that. All right. And then some other assumptions we can make about turbines and compressors is that the heat transfer across the turbine or compressor is 0 for both. This is because they're typically well insulated. That's why we can make this assumption. And we can also say that potential energy changes are negligible. And velocities are typically too slow to cause a significant change, but sometimes we just include it anyway, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so moving on, we can introduce throttling valves. These devices restrict flow, causing a significant pressure drop in the fluid. So they restrict flow. Causing pressure drop in the fluid. Okay, and then some assumptions for this is we can say that Q equals 0 also. The work would equal 0. The change in PE would equal 0. And change in kinetic energy also equals 0. So the cool thing about throttling valves is that the enthalpies, assuming it's a single inlet, single outlet, the enthalpies of the inlet would equal the enthalpy of the outlet for throttling valves, excuse me. All right. So mixing chambers are referred to as the sections where the mixing process of two fluids takes place. So this is just the mixing process of two fluids. So I mean, you could think of this as like a T interchange. So you have an inlet here, fluid 1, let's call it fluid 2, separate fluids, and then you have a third one here. This could be considered a mixing chamber. And we can say that for mixing chambers, the sum of the incoming mass flow rates equal the mass flow rate of the outgoing mixture. So they're typically well insulated, meaning that Q is also 0 for these. And they don't involve work interactions either, so we can say that work is 0. And again, we can say the change in potential energy is 0, and change in kinetic energy is approximately 0 as well. So finally, we get to heat exchangers. So these are devices where two moving fluid streams exchange heat without mixing. So you can say two moving fluids exchange heat without mixing. All right. So you typically solve these kinds of devices, meaning heat exchangers, by treating each pipe as separate systems, but knowing that the heat leaving one system is the same as the heat entering the other system. So just sketching this out real quick. So if you have, let's say, you have one fluid here, a green fluid, right? The green fluid goes in, green fluid leaves. But let's say you also have a purple tube in here. And in this tube, you have purple fluid going in. You have purple fluid also going out. So you're going to have an interaction between the purple fluid and the green fluid. So meaning that if you, let's look at this. If you look at this, the heat leaving this pipe system, so the Q out of this, for instance, that is going to be the Q in into the green. That would be equal to the Q leaving the purple. So that's what we would do for heat exchangers. Just a quick glance. All right, so we can say that the work equals 0 for heat exchangers. We can also say that the change in kinetic energy and the change in potential energy equals 0. And if you did, so for instance, for our picture here, if you chose your control volume to be both, to include both fluids in the pipes and all, then you can say that Q is 0. So the heat transfer of the whole system, of course, is 0 because we typically say that this is a well-insulated system. Of course, if you're analyzing each fluid separately, so if you analyze the tube first and then the green fluid second, you'd know that the heat exchange between those two isolated systems is not going to be 0. You just know that the overall for the whole system is 0. Alright, so that pretty much concludes this video. I just wanted to go over all the different devices you may encounter and what you can assume for each one. So in the next video, I'm going to go over a practice example to illustrate the process of analyzing open system devices. Alright, hope you guys enjoyed.